Functionally fabulous day, grade 8 students. Before we begin, let's take a moment to reflect and pray. Amazing grace, my chains are gone. Amen. Class Secretary, how is our today's attendance? I'm glad to hear that everyone is present today and I'm looking forward for a productive session with all of you. Now class, are you ready to divide and conquer today's mathematical duel? Alright, let's begin with a quick knowledge refresh. Yesterday, we discussed about linear function. Who can remind me of its general formula? Articulate. It is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. At this point, using your whiteboard, I want you to jot down the slope and the y-intercept of the following linear functions. Finish class? If so, you may exchange whiteboards with your seatmate and let's check your answers. For the first linear function, what is m and what is b? Very good. M is equal to 2 and b is equal to 4. For the next linear function, we have articulate. Y is equal to negative 5 and b is equal to negative 6. And for the last one, brilliant. We have the slope of 7 and the y-intercept of negative 12. Excellent job, class. You're really sharp with linear function. Now, let's put your knowledge to the test through a fun situational problem which we will call a streaming plan showdown. Imagine you and your barkada love binge watching movies. Two streaming platforms are offering different payment schemes. You must choose one plan, which is more solid. For the plan A, we have Stream On. There will be no monthly fee, but you have to pay 40 pesos per movie. And the function to represent that will be y is equal to 40x. For the second plan, we have Binge Box. You have to pay a flat fee of 400 pesos. But you can watch as many movies as you can. And the function to represent that is y is equal to 400. We have here the comparison table to visualize between the two plans. In the first column, we have there the x, which represents the number of movies watched. Let's say if you did not watch any movie, for plan A, you don't have to pay anything. Unlike for plan B, whether you watch a single movie or more movie, still you have to pay a flat fee of 400 pesos. Meanwhile, if you watch a total of 7 movies, for plan A, you have to multiply 40 by 7. And so you have to pay 280 pesos. But for plan B, no matter how less or how more the number of movies you are going to watch, still you have to pay 400 pesos. Given those information, let's try to answer the following questions. For the first one, at what point do both plans cost the same? Right, it is when x, or the total number of movies watched, is equal to 10. Both plans are going to pay an amount of 400 pesos. For the second question, which plan is cheaper if you only watch 5 movies? Excellent! It is when you're going to watch 5 movies, you have to pay 200 pesos for plan A. That's why it is cheaper. What about when you are going to watch 12 movies? Very good. Plan B is cheaper because you only have to pay 400 pesos. And for the last question, which do you think is more suited to avail? You spot on. If you are going to watch less than 10 movies, then plan A is a better choice. However, if you prefer watching more than 10 movies, then plan B is better choice. Today, class will explore how linear functions can be used to model real-life decisions, empowering you to make informed and practical choices. But before we dive in, let's take a look at our learning objectives. Class, kindly read. So these are the learning targets that are expected for you to achieve at the end of our class discussion. To begin, let's explore what each variable in the linear function represents in real life. Let's start with b, which in real life is the initial value. In our example a while back, our b is equal to 400 because it is the fixed fee. Next we have m and x. M is the rate of change and x is the input. Usually they go together, wherein they are represented by m per unit. Let's take our example while back, which is 40 pesos per movie. Here, our m is equal to 40 and x is the number of movies. It can be any value, maybe 1, 2, any value for x. And lastly, we have y. Y is the output or total cost or earnings. Usually, y is the result obtained after plugging in values for b, for x, and for m. Class, do you need further elaboration on this part? If not, then let's proceed to translating real-world problem to linear function. Let's take this as an example. Miss Anna is a part-time tutor. She charges a base fee of 150 pesos for materials and 200 per hour of tutoring. Write a function for the total cost. Bear in mind that when translating real-world problem to linear function, you only have to identify two key values, the values for m and b. Now let's try to identify the value of m here. What do you think is the value of m? Correct. The value of m is 200 as it is represented here, 200 per hour. Later on, the number of hours there, which is our unit here, will be your value for x. Next, what do you think is the initial value or the fixed value? Correct, it is 150, the base fee. Now, since we already have the value for our m and the value for our b, we can just plug in them to our linear function and it will now become y is equal to 200x plus 150. Are you following along, class? Very good. Now, since you already have your linear function, we can now use it to solve real-world problem. Just like for example, if you are asked how much will 3 hours of tutoring cost, first, you have to write your linear function. So our original linear function is y is equal to 200x plus 150. Our next step to answer that question is, we let x is equal to 3. So we have y now is equal to 200 times the quantity 3 plus 150. Moving on to our computation, we have 200 times 3, that is 600, and then we're going to add 150. Now adding 600 plus 150, we have 750. So it means you are going to pay an amount of 750 pesos for every 3 hours of tutoring. Does it make sense, class? I am glad to hear that. Now, you try to do this one. Here is the next problem. A delivery rider charges 50 pesos for booking plus 10 pesos per kilometer. Write a linear function. So first, let's identify your m or the rate of change. What do you think is the value of m here? Alright, it is 10. What about the initial value? Brilliant, it is 50. And now, how are we going to write it as linear function? You spot on, it is y is equal to 10x plus 50. Since we already have our linear function, let's try to answer this question. How much will it cost for 5 kilometers? So, what will we do here? Very good, we're going to plug in 5 in terms of x. So, we now have y is equal to 10 times the quantity 5 plus 50. Proceeding to our computation, what is 10 times 50? That is 50. And then we're going to add 50 plus 50, so we now have our final value as 100. So it means for every 5 kilometers covered, there will be a charge fee of 100 pesos. Have you able to follow, class? Alright. Now, let's proceed to finding the breaking even point to decide. This is now the time where we are given two options and we have to decide which is better. But this time we no longer have to use tables just like in our example a while back. Here, the break-even point we're talking about is the value of x wherein both plans have the same amount to pay. Just like in our example a while back. The break-even point for plan A and for plan B is x is equal to 10, or when the number of movies watched is 10. But what if what if we don't have table to visualize? This is now the importance of linear function. As long as you know the linear function that represents each plan, then you can just solve it easily. But how? To do this, let's first set the two equations equal. For the plan A, we have the first equation 40x, so we have 40x here, is equal to our plan B linear function, which is 400. We just set them equal to each other. Now, our goal here is to only get the value for x. So to do that, let's divide both sides of the equations by 40. 40 divided by 40, that will be x. And 400 divided by 40, that would be 10. So it means our break-even point is 10. It is the value of x wherein the two plans can have parallel amount to be paid. Now, our last step after identifying the break-even point is to set any values lesser than 10 and greater than 10. Let's start with value lesser than 10, and we picked the number 5. We tried to plug in x is equal to 5 to each of the linear function. For the first one is stream on 40x. So we're going to plug in 5 in terms of x, so we have 200. But for pinch box, there will be no value of x, so it will just be 400. As you notice, for stream on, you only have to pay 200. But for binge back, you have to pay an amount of 400. So your decision now here is, when watching less than 10 movies, stream on is more affordable. Now let's try to plug in values for x, wherein that number is greater than 10. And let's pick the number we pick is 12. So let's try 12 for stream on. So 40 times 12, that is 480. But for binge back, still you're going to pay an amount of 400. Now as you notice, binge box is cheaper when watching more than 10 movies. So your decision here is, when you watch less than 10 movies, then stream on is better. But when you watch more than 10 movies, binge box is better. So it's up to you. Which do you prefer? If you prefer watching more than or less than 10 movies. So class, did you get our discussion? Have you able to follow? Very good. Now, let's try to put your skills in a test through peer activity, and here is your peering. You may now proceed with your partner, and this is the task that you have to finish. Are you ready to get started? Alright, I'll be giving you 5 minutes to do that. Finish class. Now, may I ask for 2 pairs of representatives to present their works. Excellent job, class. You really applied linear functions well. Now, let's take a step back and review what we've learned. Again, what do the slope and y-intercept represent in real life? Brilliant! Next, why are linear functions important in everyday decisions? Your ideas are spot on. Very good, class. You're really doing well. Now I want you to bring out a sheet of paper and answer your short quiz. Class, you may now submit your papers in front. Before we end, please copy your short assignment. Thank you, class, for your active cooperation for today. And I hope that as we grab our journey or mathematical journey, you still keep on applying the concept of linear function as you make your real life decisions. Have a great day.